Welcome to the Voncast Show. Today I got a guest with me, Daniel Nuño of Good Morning Capital, founder and CEO of Warranty Playbook and Basecamp Utah. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for being on the show.
Stoked to be here. Really stoked to be here.
All right, man. So you're a good friend of James, who had on the podcast recently he's the host of No More Dead Friends podcast. So this episode is about your journey with addiction and recovery. It's near and dear to me because I'm in recovery as well. So yeah, man, I really like talking about these things. I feel like talking about this stuff, it like reinforces, it makes me remember what I've been through, and listening to other people's stories. It reinforces like, hey, stay clean,
Yeah, dude.
Cool. So, how are you doing today?
Good. Dude, I don't know if I told you this when we were messaging, but so 1 week ago my son was born. So this whole week my son's 1 week old actually. And another really cool thing about recovery is like some of the things that it's given me as far as like my relationships and just opportunities and things like that. So needless to say, I'm tired, bro. I'm freaking it's a lot of responsibility. And also I'm like full of like love and just like in awe of this little human that the universe or God or whatever, Mother Nature sent to us, and entrusted with us. And yeah, man, just super, super grateful today.
Nice. Congratulations, man. I think I saw in your story that of your picture of your son, and I was like, oh shit, I wonder if I was like, I wouldn't mind if he needs to like reschedule, but thank you for being here, man.
Yeah, dude, of course. Yeah, I was these things are important to me, and like, for the most part, I if it was anything that was like, something that needed to be rescheduled, that's fine. But like with stuff like this, especially when it comes to like recovery, um, my wife knows, for me, this is just something that I've always had to put first. Cause like I told her since we first started dating, cause her and I started dating after I was in recovery. And, I just had to have like a boundary for myself that like my recovery has to come first. Cause that's what everybody told me, like your recovery has to come first if you want to make it. And so like since the beginning of us dating, I had told her that. But the crazy thing is like she was on the exact same page. Like she was like, you have to do that stuff because that's the only thing that keeps you, based off of our conversation and me sharing with her like about my life. Like she's like, that's the thing that is keeping you, connected and clean and sober today. Um, so yeah, doing this kind of things are like so important to me. I was able to jump on a call the other day and talk with a lady whose son, who's actually basically my age, um, was seeking help, heavy fentanyl user. It's weird how these like synchronicities and like serendipities happen in my life. And I'm able to kind of like recognize them today. But God put me on the phone with this lady who has a son. She's currently living in Utah. Like is a Mormon family.
Mm-hmm.
Her son is my age, struggling with addiction. Her and I got to talking, dude, and like we're like weeping, dude. And this was 2 days ago. We're like weeping on the phone, like just connecting with each other. And I had this experience where like I was able to put myself in her position as a parent, just being a new parent. And dude, that was a really powerful experience for me. And I was so grateful that I'm able to show up for other people today,
Yeah, man, that's awesome. It's cool to connect, and especially with a parent now that you're a parent too. It's different seeing addiction from a different perspective. But speaking of the Mormon faith, man, you grew up in the Mormon faith. What was it like? Because I'm always curious. I don't know too much about it. The only thing I know is just the stuff you see on like the documentaries of like the really extreme sex of it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I don't think, and on South Park stuff. I grew up Catholic. I'm not Catholic anymore. I don't practice it, but I was wondering like, what was it like growing up in like a, I guess, normal or like Mormon, upbringing?
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. Um, and yeah, it is interesting because there are a lot of like either like documentaries or other things about different pieces of the Mormon faith. There are some that are like just like the like not even considered Mormon. They're like a different branch of it. I don't
Mm,
know what it's called actually. It's like fundamentalist or something like that. But then there are some good ones that touch on different aspects of Mormonism and what doesn't work for some people's lives. Like it's really difficult to be someone who's in the LGBTQ plus community in the Mormon faith, just because there's not a healthy outlet to like express your love, to love somebody of the same sex. And that was my kind of like my issue with it. One of them. Um, there's just not a healthy path for somebody, and so there's a lot of depression, self harm in the Mormon community with people of that orientation. And so once I got sober, I actually did get rebaptized. I'll kind of take you back a little bit further, but once I got sober, I got rebaptized and um, into my faith, and then I kind of started to have these like cognitive dissonance because like I was so open and accepting, and I felt like my religion or my faith wasn't. I mean, as much as people are loving and they're very kind and generous people. The doctrines of the church are the doctrines of the church, and that is what it states. There's no healthy path for somebody who's same sex attracted to have what we call like an eternal family. You know, and to me, that didn't work for me anymore. And so that's kind of when I started my faith transition. But to get back to your question, growing up in a Mormon family was awesome, man. Like it was really dope. Like it was in the 80s, early 90s, back then. And I will also say like some of the stuff that affected like black families or and also affected like LGBTQ plus families. That stuff never affected us. It just wasn't a part of like our awareness. Um, and so growing up and that faith was awesome. I was got to see my homies every Sunday at church. We did like youth activities. It's like really wholesome, on that front. I come from a big family, so I'm the youngest of six kids, so that's amazing. I have a great relationship with all of my siblings, and all of my siblings are like the freaking coolest people, dude. Like my siblings are amazing. My parents are amazing. Like my parents' story is like so dope that um well, I'll kind of tell you. So my parents weren't born in the Mormon faith. They converted at a certain age, but my parents were married super young. My mom was 15. My dad was like 16 or 17 when they got together. And um, my mom was one of two children, but she was basically kind of like the mom in her family. So she had a lot of responsibility on her. And she was also a young mom, 15 years old, when she had my oldest sister, Yvonne. So a lot of responsibility, but my mom's like the toughest person I know, like the most amazing person I know. And so I see how the Mormon faith was like very attractive because it gave like a community, to our family. It gave a lot of guidance as kids. We kind of just like, instead of just like running amok, it's like, okay, this is what God wants you to do, like these type of things. And so it gave us a good foundation. Not to mention like all the fun stuff we did, camping, scouts. I had a good experience with Boy Scouts. I never became like an Eagle Scout, but I love like the camping. I love like the fishing, the bow hunting, or like the shooting like the arrows, or like getting like a swimming merit badge. There's like nothing better when you're just a young dude. You're just like, oh, we get to go swimming. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and then you get a badge for it, like even better. And so my upbringing in Northern California in the Mormon faith was a great experience. You know, I had no issues. And my family's, you know, they're awesome. And, and I have a lot of family members that are still very active in the church. And you know how it is when, well, for me, what I can say for me in recovery, like I see the value in all religions, you know, in all faiths and all walks of life. And, and I see how somebody who's like devoted to that and living a great life is, I highly commend them. Just to stop working for me as I kind of like express a little bit. But my upbringing, dude, was really good.
Nice, man. No, that's awesome. I grew up Catholic. I have a family in the Catholic. He was a priest. So yeah, same thing for me. I kind of fell out of it because of similar reasons. The queer community, it didn't have like healthiest, like, I don't know, you said path. I mean, some in Catholicism kind of is, kind of isn't. But to me, I just kind of fell out of it. But I can see why people are attracted to the religion. You know, it brings them like a sense of like foundation and comfort. And working the program, I'm learning to accept that and be more tolerant. Before I really wasn't. Now it's like, okay, that's pretty much their program. This is my program. I feel
Yeah.
like if it makes you a better person, by all means, go for it. So I'm definitely learning that tolerance part and accepting part of it. My families are they're still Catholic, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm the only child. So it's interesting. You have six other siblings or five other siblings. That's pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Well, so to kind of touch on that, yeah, you know, there are a lot of people that have with many religions. Like it's not just Mormon, Catholicism. It's basically any religion. You know, there can be a faith transition where there's like a lot of resentment there because unfortunately, like it's filled with humans, and we know human beings like we fuck up all the time. You know, or we make selfish choices, or we do harm to others, um, or we hurt other people in ways that we've been hurt, you know? And so, yeah, you know, sometimes like that faith transition or the separation is like a tear and there's like a lot of resentment there. And, you know, there's like just, contempt, like, yeah, is that what it's called? Contempt, like a feeling of like, oh, I freaking hate this, you know? And what we learn is like, there are like other people are working their program. And this is other people's paths, and you know we learn to deal with our resentments, and we learn to just own our part and just only be worried about you know how we're navigating through life, and if we're continuing that cycle of harm, and if we are, how to make it right, you know. And so that's what recovery's really given me in the space of like my faith transition is like kind of like you said to your point is like a healthy separation. Oh, you know what? This doesn't work for me anymore. I'm so happy it works for other people. This is just my experience, and I'm moving in it just in a different path. Essentially, I'm you know we still are very much like connected to a spiritual program. That's what's required of us, and that's kind of like what's told to us is like it's a daily reprieve, you know? It's a daily reprieve. Like I have to try and be of service to somebody. I have to not be selfish today. I have to not just think of myself. Um, I have to not do harm. I do this, like this is how I make it right. And if I can try and live like that, or at least like hang my hat at least today that I didn't use or drink, then freak, dude, this was an amazing day, you know? And there have been days in my recovery where that was the only thing that I had. That was the only thing I had that I would like feel so bad about some way that I navigated something. Maybe I like acted out like emotionally or, you know, was mean or did something out of character. And I'm like, damn, I feel like shit, you know? Then I was like, but you know what? Like today I'm freaking sober. Today I'm clean. Like that is something to be proud of. And so I've had days like that, dude. And that's been a cool experience for me too.
Yeah, same here. It's just, yeah, I don't have the best day sometimes, but it feels nice that I didn't resort to my old ways of coping.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm still surprised, but then again, I'm not. It's like, damn, like I really, I like my go-to would be like, oh, I'm gonna get high right now, but now it's like, okay, that's not the option. There's other ways of doing it. There's other ways of dealing with it. Sometimes it's just like going to sleep or just talking to somebody. But I just know that even though I'm in a really bad mood sometimes, it's sometimes tempting. Like I think about it, but then immediately think, no, dude, it's going to be a lot worse. And you're going to be more upset at yourself than you already are. And fortunately, so far, that's worked for me.
Yeah.
It's just, I just tell myself, where this is going to go. It's going to be cool. Like the first hit, you're going to like, it's going to be fun. Like on the way to your plug's house, like get all jittery, is all cool and everything. But once you take that first hit, man, I can just see myself, feeling very guilty, shameful.
Yeah.
I've had dreams sometimes where I relapse and I really think it's real. And I'm like, man, this doesn't even count. Did I tell my sponsor? What do I tell him? And I wake up tripping and I'm like, oh shit, that was a dream. And I think for me, that's a preview of what can happen if I go down that path again. I might OD with all the fentanyl, but realistically, I probably won't, but it'll be like a very slow thing. I'll probably be like, okay, that was one time. Cool. Never again. 1 week later, oh, let's do it again. Half a week later,
Yeah.
the pattern. Yeah.
Oh
It's
yeah,
a,
dude.
it's slippery slope, man. But
Oh, bro,
yeah.
I've played so many of those tapes in my head, and like I've had dreams too where I'm like I woke up, I'm like, bro, I got super faded. Like, what am I doing? Yeah, like what have I done? Like this is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, man. So you got married at a young age, right?
I did, yeah. I met my wife Alana when I was sober. Prior to that, I got married. So to kind of go back to my Mormon upbringing. So I served a church mission. So I went on a church mission for 2 years to Detroit, Michigan. I served a full 2 years, came back. Prior to that, I played football at the University of Utah. When I came back, I went back to the University of Utah to play football. And I got married, and I got married really young, 22. And, there was, I was already, I was already a selfish, self-centered, self-seeking individual. Even though between the ages of basically 18 and 24, I was completely, I didn't use any substances. I didn't use any substances during that time because a year before I went on my mission, which was 18 to 19, I didn't use anything, and I was playing football. And then my 2 years on my mission, obviously I wasn't using anything. And then when I got back and I continued sports, I wasn't using anything, and I was kind of focused on just sports, but very, very ego driven, very sensitive, took everything the wrong way. Bro, I took everything the wrong way. Literally, like I was so delusional in a lot of ways. It's kind of wild. Like looking back. But so I got married at a young age. And you know, it's so young at the age of 22. Like I didn't know who I was. I was still like trying to figure out life. Um, that is something that at least in my mind felt encouraged at the time with like my church upbringing, kind of like my culture. It was like, okay, so now you come back from your church mission and you get married before you can get in any trouble, essentially. And so I did, and it just wasn't a good fit. I eventually, got into smoking weed, drinking, then opiates. Then my ex had an affair, and that sent me spiraling into more opiates and alcohol and anything you can, any prescription pill you can get it. Someone else can get it. If they prescribed it for me, that was awesome. I didn't really care. I was just I was just taking everything to, at that point, once everything went down, I was taking everything just to forget and like completely, almost like wipe my mind, you know, because I didn't have any coping skills and I was like a broken individual. I felt broken. I felt I felt broken at the time. You know, I felt really just kind of like lost my family foundation, my church foundation. Um, I just felt really lost at the time. And so that's what I was doing. I was just like, I don't know what else to do other than essentially kill myself. That was like the goal, but I don't know, I wasn't up for cutting myself or harming myself in any other way. I was just like, let me just either wipe my mind clean, completely go into a coma, not wake up the next day. So I had a lot of days like that where I was like, man, if I don't wake up tomorrow, God bless, because that's going to be a relief for me, you know?
Yeah, man, dude, that's wild. My parents were young too, when they had me. I think what it was is I think they found out my mom was pregnant and they felt almost obliged to get married because in the Catholic faith, that's what you're supposed to do. My dad was 17, my mom was 20. And even my grandma, my dad's mom, was like, no, you don't have to get married. You're so young. But I think they felt really compelled to because of religion. They felt kind of like, we have to.
Yeah.
Long story short, it didn't last too long. You know, it is what it is. But yeah, there's that like influence from like your religious upbringing, even though like, you know, his mom was like, no, you're so young, but you know, it is what it is. You live and learn. And, dude, yeah, I'm
That's
sorry
so
to hear
funny
that.
that you say that because, like,
Yeah.
I remember going and talking to my bishop, and so I had broke something called the law of chastity, which is like you have sex before you're married, you know. And so I went and talked to my bishop about that, and so he's like, we're working through it, and I'm going through like the repentance process, you know, and and then I kind of felt like obligated too. I'm like, oh, I got to make this person kind of like my wife, my spouse, you know, because I've already crossed the line there, and so this is like what God wants me to do. So I went and told my bishop, and to his credit, he was like, you don't have to get married. And I'm like, yeah, but I do, you know, I do. He's like, no, you don't have to. Like, you don't have to do this. I'm like, yeah, I feel like I do. And in my mind, I was thinking, you're crazy, you know, like, why are you telling me this? But
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's
that's where I
interesting.
was at, you know?
Yeah. That's really interesting. Wow. Yeah. Just like that obligation kind of thing. So we talk, okay. So you got into drinking. So you just went from alcohol to opiate. Did you ever did like any uppers or anything or not really?
Well, I had always been prescribed Adderall.
Okay.
So Adderall and Valium, you know, if I could get a prescription for those two, that was like my go-to. And I'd go through a month of those in maybe a week or something like that.
Okay. I realized, well, I was diagnosed with ADHD a couple of years ago and it kind of all made sense. My therapist told me with my drug of choice, I stuck to uppers and I told her, yeah, when I take uppers, I'm calm. I feel focused. And she goes, oh, yeah, maybe because you have ADHD, that's what it does. That's what it's supposed to do. Cause whenever I took Adderall, I always told myself and my friends like, yo, it's not working. I'm like not feeling anything. And I realized that's what it's supposed to do. If you have ADHD, you're supposed to
Yeah,
like
yeah, you
lock in.
lock in. Yeah.
I thought I was supposed to get all hyper and like all this shit, but like I guess you're not if you don't have ADHD. Like I heard if you don't have ADHD, it's like really fun. And my friends did it, and they were like having fun. I'm like, dude, this is not doing anything. Let me get another one.
Yeah.
Get another Vyvanse. You know, like I'm just on my phone for like 5 hours, not realizing it's been 5 hours, dude. You
Oh
know?
yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, man, something I pointed out from your episode with James, he took Ambien, and not too many people I know fuck with Ambien. I remember the first time I took it, like my friend took it from his dad's cabinet, and we took it, and like it's you get in a weird state, like you just chill out and you kind of black out and you wake up, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
It's kind of a trip, dude.
Yeah,
It's a
dude. So
trip.
that's kind of to your point of blacking out. That's just kind of what I wanted, you know.
Mm.
I wanted just to forget everything. Literally, like I wanted to forget everything. And so um when I had taken a bunch of Ambien, it was, you know, it was like, okay, if I don't wake up tomorrow, it's whatever. But I liked the feeling of going completely blank. Like I just it felt like a relief for me in the moment. Otherwise, I was just haunting myself by my resentments. I was playing this old tape that, you know, was so skewed in a way that was just extremely unhealthy for me, you know, and I was just like completely what's it called when you feel sorry for yourself?
I think self pity or just
Yeah,
feel kind of,
self-pity,
yeah, yeah,
self-loathing, just
yeah.
just yeah, self-pity, bro. And I was like, I just want to forget everything. And so that was kind of my goal there in taking the Ambien too, was like, this is another thing that can help me just like erase my memory. I wanted it gone.
Yeah. I heard some trippy stuff. I remember my friend says like you get sleepy, but you have to fight it, dude. You had to fight it. And I
Yeah.
remember like my friends sometimes see stuff, but I didn't. But like I don't know, the next day you get stories of like, oh dude, you're saying some wild stuff, or like I don't know, I get videos of like I was put on a motorcycle helmet, like not knowing what I was doing. It was
Yeah.
trippy. But I get what you mean by the self pity thing. For me with relationships, man, it's weird. Like I almost look forward or didn't look forward to like when it goes downhill, but I knew when it went downhill, I'm like, all right, this is an excuse for me to get like a lot more high. Let me get extra amount of drugs, just like this. We'll talk about it now. It's like this going the pursuit of oblivion pretty much. I really enjoyed that. I don't know what it was, man, but like something about like heartbreak. Oh, like I think media like glorifies this thing of like, oh, I'm gonna get fucked up, drink a bunch, like do a bunch of coke and stuff. And that's what I did to kind of numb the pain, but it did for a bit, but then when it wears off, you got to keep doing it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that's the same for me. So the crazy thing is, so I've had I know of at least two seizures from coming off of either benzodiazepines, or I think it was the day following taking those Ambiens. I guess that night I was like you said, talking crazy, like to people that weren't there or whatever. I don't remember anything. And then the next day I ended up having a seizure, and the ambulance had to come and get me from the house and stuff. And so that was pretty wild. But yeah, man, like I was just trying to I don't know how else to put it other than just to like hit that erase button in my brain to erase any cause of pain in my life. Or so there were a few things. One, my life wasn't the way that I wanted it to be or I imagined it to be growing up. Things didn't work out the way that I had expected them to. And that was very difficult for me to cope with. Like extremely difficult for me to cope with. My ex had an affair. That was extremely difficult for me to cope with. I had gotten excommunicated from my church. That was only very difficult for me to cope with because it was like tied to my ex having an affair. It happened at the same time. They're like, okay, you both are excommunicated. And I was like, what the fuck, dude? This is such bullshit. Like I didn't do this. She did it. Like I was like blaming other people for where I was at, and not taking accountability. And so that's why the excommunication bothered me. If it happened just kind of like, oh, you're excommunicated because, you've done all these crazy things, and I would have been like, okay, I don't really understand it, but whatever. The thing that really made it a resentment for me was because it was tied to that situation, and she was excommunicated at the same time I was, and I was like, but I didn't fucking do this. And so anyways, at that point in my life, I had basically zero accountability for my life. You know, I felt like things just kind of happened to people as a matter of like luck or, on a whim or whatever. Things worked out for people for whatever reason. I didn't really understand it. I didn't understand the idea of accountability. And so because of that, I would always blame other people for my circumstances, whether it was how things worked out for me in football, how things worked out for me in my marriage, whether how things worked out for me in other relationships, whether how things worked out for me in my job. I was always able to project and see other people's fault in things. I was excellent. I was excellent at it. And then my mind would co-sign it and be like, oh yeah, it was their fault. You know, they are assholes. That cop pulled me over running a yellow light. And yeah, I had a 0.32 alcohol content, but he said I ran a red light, but it was yellow. That dude's a fucking asshole. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that
Yep.
crazy for me to get mad at a cop who pulled me over for thinking, because I thought I was just gunning it through a yellow light. But I was like, how many times is that the legal limit? 5 times? Something like that? 4 or 5 times the legal limit? I was absolutely drunk, dude. And the reality is it probably was red and I was just misperceiving it. But regardless, if it was a green light, I was fucking drunk out of my mind, a danger to myself and others. And I'm mad at this fool for pulling me over. That's how crazy my mind was, bro. Like that's how much I put the blame for my choices and my actions on other people. That's just one example of how I navigated my whole life.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that because I remember when I was knee deep in addiction, that's what I would think like, oh, like something happened in my job, this and that, and I would blame every little thing on my external circumstances or other people or events, but I never looked at myself, really. I felt like my using wasn't never a problem. I never thought, I was like, oh, they need to change. I wish this happened. I wish that happened. But me using drugs, that's how I cope with things. I didn't put the two together that maybe because I'm using excessively all the time, that it just might have an impact on my external life outside of just me in my room getting high. That was like aha moment. Like, oh, they are connected. Like maybe, maybe if I wasn't getting high all night, I wouldn't be so tired of work, and maybe I wouldn't have made all these mistakes, and maybe I wouldn't have, that my manager wouldn't have talked to me like that or something of that nature, or
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, little things like that. Or, and it's interesting to hear it from another person that, that's what it is. And I had no accountability either. I thought like it's everybody's fault, but not me. Like I'm using just to get by. Okay. My thing was I'm using because the external world is not is not accommodating to my needs. So it's this really weird, like vicious circle.
Oh yeah, no, dude. I was right in that circle. I was up in that circle hard, just running that circle.
Yeah.
I was making laps and laps. I don't know how many laps I made, but it was like that was the story of my life, bro.
Yeah.
Story of my life,
Same.
doing something that was selfish, self-seeking, self-serving. Because like anytime my mind's thinking of getting some oxycontin, getting, how I'm going to pay this full back, how I'm going to make this money to get this, how I'm going to navigate or manipulate or, um, you know, uh, whatever finesse the situation, then I'm like not present, and I'm also very much selfish. So there's this line in this book that really stood out to me, and it basically says like we realize that we made decisions based on self, which later places us in a position to be hurt, you know, and essentially like that all of our problems were of our own making, and that like really stood out to me because I could trace back to every situation in my life. It was me making decisions for myself where at a later point I would be placed in a position to be hurt. And yeah, maybe I felt like a coworker could have acted differently, but you know what? I never freaking was of service to that coworker. You know, I would call in sick. I would put more, dude, I would call in sick, right? And I didn't even think that my team had to like carry my weight. I would just be like, oh, it's not a big deal. Those are my customers. But guess what? When my customers call in, if anyone needs any help with my manager who has to report to his manager who has to report to the owner, like
Mm.
that's some bullshit, you know? Like just the way I was navigating my life. And so when I got that termination letter on November 24, 2017, or November 23rd, 2017, you know, I was just like, what the fuck? Like, why are these fools firing? Mind you, like, I had just used opiates for like 4 days straight and I was withdrawing. So I felt like shit. So I called in sick and also did like a no call, no show for probably like 5 days
Mm.
on the back of like a couple months of making up excuses. My tires flat, my whatever it was to not come into work. And then I get pissed when I get a freaking FedEx letter after not showing up for work for a week because, you know, these guys made a decision to fire me because I was like harmful to their corporation, you know? But I didn't realize that and I couldn't see it in the moment. I was so heavy in self and the way that I felt and the way that the world and life had done me dirty and, you know, all these disadvantages I had. Like, bro, I have in recovery, looking back, like I have had so many opportunities given to me and I've squandered them, bro, left and right, left and right. The one thing that was given to me that I hold most valuable today is my opportunity to find recovery and to really like latch on to a 12-step program. And that's been my life, just like life saving for me. Not for 1 minute do I feel like I could do it without that. Not for 1 second, bro. Like not for 1 second. And to think, you know, you've probably gone through this in your own mind, as I'm sure all of us have. The fact that we're not dead right now, that we're not in prison right now, or we're not like handicapped from doing some kind of harm to ourselves or other people is just like, it's like such a miracle that now that I'm in recovery, I'm like, okay, how do I share some of my gifts that I have with other people, like what you're doing right now? They told me to like build a life that's so good that the idea of relapse is just it would just like fuck everything up. Like it's not even appealing anymore. So what you're doing now in doing the Voncast and being of service to other people and sharing your story and allowing other people to share theirs is like so impactful, man. Like you can't go back. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't go back. You're on this path. You're moving forward. You're taking action. You're helping people. The ripple effect that these stories will have to the people that hear them are endless. Like you can't change. You've been exposed to this way of life now. You can't be unexposed. Like you're being of service. You know, you've created a life that's worth staying clean for, and that's the goal, man. And like I think the original question was, um, what was it like, you know, trying to get to that place of oblivion and it was like I wanted to forget everything. I wanted to forget where my life was. And today, like I want to remember everything, you know? And I'm able to see things not perfectly. You know, my perception on life will never be perfect. I still have moments where I'm like, oh fuck that guy. You know? or or I get my feelings hurt or whatever, but I'm able to like quickly make those adjustments because then I remind myself like what my sponsor had told me
Mm.
and it was the process of like I remember he sat me down and asked me these questions. He said, of all the things that God created or the universe has created, did he give you the best sight? And I said, no, I think eagles have a probably better sight than me. He's like, all right, that's right. He's like, what about the best hearing? I'm like, I know dogs have way better hearing than me. He's like, what about the best sense of smell? I'm like, hell no. He's like, what about sense of taste? I'm like, no. He's like, sense of feeling, who knows really? But I'd say that's probably no too. And he's like, so do you think with your senses maybe not being the best that God's ever created, that you could perceive life incorrectly at times? And I said, yeah. And that was like an aha moment for me, dog. That was like, that completely shifted my mind from thinking that I understood everything correctly and that I did all my research and it's this way and having this narrow mind to all of a sudden like it could be anything, and as long as I leave a door open for God or the universe or whatever to work and not be so fixed minded, then I leave an opening for like miracles to happen, and so that's where I'm kind of at today from going from the wanting everything just to be erased from my mind to really like loving where my life's at right now and understanding myself on a way better level emotionally and spiritually and like having healthy coping skills in a community of people that that have gone before me and that I'm able to help as well at times.
Yeah, man. No, well said. I really like that. Uh, you know, I totally agree with that. Just, I still take things personally and have to tell myself, really, is it worth it? Like if I get, I don't know, someone makes a smart remark or something like that, I really have the choice. Like, am I really going to make this like, make it waste my time? Is it, I want to make it a thing because I notice I get emotionally like drained, it upsets me. And in the past, this is what would lead me to using. I get upset and I'd want to forget. Like you said, I try to remember things now, and sometimes it sucks, but I'm learning healthy coping mechanisms. But yeah, man, it's difficult, dude. So you were saying back then you were using opiates. For those who don't know, can you describe like the fear of withdrawal from opiates and what that's like? Because I remember
Yeah.
I did it for a bit. I remember I was doing like Vicodin at first. It's like whatever. I didn't like them at first. They made me too mellow. Then I did like oxys. They were cool. And then like I switched to targets. It was a lot cheaper. And for me, the withdrawal was different. Other drugs, it was mainly mental withdrawals, but like the physical withdrawals were like something very new to me. And I'm glad I didn't dabble in it too long. But what was that like for you?
Dude, the withdrawals on opiates are probably the most painful thing that I've experienced. I was so scared to withdraw from opiates that like I talked to my doctor about getting Suboxone, and Suboxone withdrawals are even worse. Like, but so when I would use opiates, I would get enough to sell, and I was supposed to sell them all essentially. It got to the point where I was just using them all, and I would be like a week out from my re-up, or 2 weeks out even, depending on where my use was at the time. And just the fear that I would have of the pain, it's like sweat. It's like having like a really bad flu, you know? It's like having a really bad flu that uh makes everything in your body kind of hurt, and you have like cold sweats, like any kind of like change in temperature is like extremely uncomfortable. Um yeah, I mean, I'm not someone who can't take like pain or anything like that, but opiate withdrawals for me were just the worst. They just were just like, it was just such a fearful moment for me.
Yeah. And for me too, probably with other withdrawals, I would start panicking when I noticed my stash get really low. It was just this dread that I never experienced before. It was like a life and death situation almost. And I would just panic, like this. It's so weird how like this amount of whatever like really controlled how I was living. And it's so weird. Sometimes I would be like, okay, cool. I'm going to get some more. But the thing with is if you keep doing a lot and you get more, like it's not going to do anything. So it's just this never ending like cycle of just, oh, okay, I'm going to get just a little more this time. And it doesn't even do anything. So you just, there's this thing where you keep going or you just stop. And yeah, withdrawals were really tough for me. I remember I'd like when I ran out, I tried to brace myself like, okay, try to do my best, have a positive attitude to go to work in the next morning and just, it wouldn't work. I was just still so out of it. It's a really, it's a really not in the best, it's not the best way of living, I can say, like, I mean, yeah, it's cool getting high and everything, but if it's habitual, it's just, I don't know, man. It's just a life not worth living. I mean, you're not even living. To me, I think it's just like existing. You wake up to get high, do whatever you need to do. And to me, it felt like it was great, but I got to tell myself, that it wasn't great. I glorify all the good times, but I also have to remember when I do glorify it, I have to really remember what it was like when I ran out or what it was like, the consequences I had to deal with afterwards.
Oh yeah. Yeah, dude. And like, dude, I thought I was so cool in the moment, like doing that shit. Like I break down some oxys and like snort them and stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is freaking amazing. I felt great. Like I just like would feel amazing. But like, I wasn't doing shit with my life, bro. Like I swear, I wasn't doing shit with my life. I wasn't helping anybody else. I just thought I was cool. I felt like I was cool. I wasn't creating anything. I wasn't being an asset. I was being a liability. And so like today it's such a clear distinction of like such a facade, those feelings like of being high or even like being faded at a party for me is just like a facade, bro. Like I love being able to just connect with people like this. I love being authentic and being able to be vulnerable. Like to me, this is like because I've even been around like a lot of people that get faded now, just with like different family members that have done like parties and stuff like that. And I love it, dude. I love being a part of it. I don't ever feel tempted because that stuff's not enticing to me anymore. Um, But I think what is appealing about using or drinking or whatever is that it allows people to find like a connection with others. It allows them to like tap into that connection. And I think as human beings, we really want that. We want to connect with somebody. We want to be able to be vulnerable. We want to be able to say, "Hey, man, I love you, dude. Like I genuinely love you," and not feel like, oh, that was awkward, you know? And I think like using allows people to kind of like tap into that sometimes. And so what I love about being in recovery is like I can genuinely tell somebody that I love them, but only because I've learned to like love myself, you know? And and I've learned, that we're all perfect. There's nothing that we lack. And I have to remind myself that sometimes, that I have everything right now. Yes, there are goals that I have, and there's a path that I'm working towards, and effort that I'll put to meet those goals. But I'm not tied to the results anymore. I'm not tied to the outcomes anymore. I do my best to fall in love with like the process, who I'm doing it with, the things that I'm learning, how I'm growing, and then the outcomes are what the outcomes are going to be. If God or the universe wants it to be, He'll make it happen. And I just have to be willing to continue the course, never give up, put one foot in front of the next is what we're taught, and put the effort in. Outside of that, like I'm not tied to the results anymore.
That's awesome. I can definitely relate with that. Some days it's easier than others. because I'm still sometimes just I want to turn out. I want it to turn out this way, but it's not on me. It's out of my control. What you said back then with about using and feeling cool, that was me, man. I'd be in my room like smoking shit off tinfoil, feeling like the coolest motherfucker ever. But then, online making memes, talking to people. But then I take a step back. I'm like, dude, I've been doing this for like 3 days straight. I'm not doing anything in my life. It was cool the first time, but then like by second or third day, I'm so paranoid. I can't go out of my room, so I piss in a bottle. That kind of shit. Like I'm so fucking paranoid, and it's like I'm pretty sure my friends are like, why is this guy up at like 5 a.m. still? In this third day. My friends, they probably weren't getting high. They were like doing regular stuff, man, maybe drinking here and there, but they went to work the next day and everything. But I like what you said though. Putting things into perspective, I wasn't doing anything. I was in my room getting high, and like it's eye opening. You said that, man. Like I really felt like, oh, I'm the coolest person. I feel so great. These emotions I'm feeling so vulnerable and all this stuff. But dude, I was just been in my room online, it's like smoking drugs, and it was like I wasn't doing anything. So I'm glad you said that because I can resonate with that too.
Yeah, yeah, dude.
So let's see. So you're doing drugs, all that stuff. What made you finally decide to take recovery seriously? Was there like a breaking point for you where you said, okay, I've had enough. Let me try something different?
Yeah. I mean, I think this goes kind of to the negotiations, and I can kind of get into that
Yeah.
if that's okay. So, I had been trying to find a way to like stop drinking, and stop wanting to use things, and like live a healthier lifestyle. Cause I saw like how destructive it was, and it was destructive. I'd gotten kind of one of the tipping points outside of, obviously the divorce wasn't a tipping point enough for me. Um, what was like a tipping point was probably 6 years or 7 years into my addiction, losing a job that I had in Texas because I was drinking on the job. That was kind of like a moment of like, damn, like you got to freaking figure it out. But during that time, I would be like, okay, I need to stop drinking. I will. If I drink tonight, then I have to work out in the morning. Or if I work out today, then I can drink tonight, or something like that. Or I'm only going to drink wine, or I'm only going to drink beer. I'm only going to smoke this, or I'm only going to use 20, or I'm only going to use get through an 80 today, or something like that. Like, because I need to kind of chill on this stuff. But I could never stop. I could never stop, even if I had like a moment of sobriety and clarity, which maybe at most lasted like a couple weeks. I would always either be happy or sad, and then I would need to use something because I wanted to use something when I wanted to celebrate, and I wanted to use something when I was feeling bad. And so it would always lead me back to that coping skill, which were substances. And and so when I lost my job, I was out in Texas. I was working for a pretty big company, and I was doing I was doing like training out there. I moved out there from Utah to do training, and at lunch, I thought it was a good idea because it was kind of a drinking company. And when I say drinking, I mean like you could have a beer at lunch if you wanted to. But at lunch, I had 2 4 Locos, and he wowed for that one. Hey,
The original formula, the OG formula.
the OG,
Oh my
dude,
god, bro!
and it was like, and I was like super drunk, and so I go back into work after lunch. Someone tells our director, who's also a friend to me at the time, um, he was a friend to me. I was obviously putting him in a terrible situation. Someone told our director that, like, oh, Daniel smells like like he's been drinking, and I'm sure I was slurring my words. I'm certain of it because I remember like really trying not to talk because I'm like, oh, damn, I sound drunk right now. And so he ends up firing me, you know? And the first thing in my mind, Ron, was, damn, I thought this fool was my friend. Why would he fire me? I was talking about that delusional thinking and non-accountability and blaming others for my situation. Why would my friend fire me? That's fucked up, you know? But it was a point in time where I was like, okay, I got fired, ended up moving back to Utah where I was living at the time. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting on this like fitness kick, you know? So I need to get back into shape and get my life together. And but I still couldn't stop. I still couldn't stop. It would always be like I would hit CrossFit hella hard, and that night I would be drinking. My drinking, I might stop, you know, from Monday to Wednesday, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was going hard, you know. And then during the week when I was working, I was popping Adderalls and Valiums at the same time because I wanted to be the most productive worker. And so, um, and so I was just like, if it wasn't one thing, it was something else. And I just couldn't figure it out. You know, I couldn't figure it out. So I got to the point, November 23rd, 2017, I was at my family's house. It was Thanksgiving. I got the letter telling me I was fired. And, I remember just being obsessed with wanting to get to my car to get some alcohol because my parents didn't have it in their house. And, I'm like, man, I got a problem. Like, I need help. But I also was like manipulating the situation because I just wanted it to be a reset for me. I wanted to go somewhere for 30 days. I never went to rehab. And then I wanted to come back and have everyone accept me and, you know, get back to my life as it was. It wasn't a real surrender. The real surrender came when I got into rehab and I realized like this problem is bigger than I thought it was, you know, and I need help. And I kind of started to buy into what some of the workers at the rehab would tell me who were also in recovery. Like, you got to work these steps, you know, and you got to get a sponsor, but the sponsor will take you through the steps after thinking like I could take myself through them. That's what I originally thought. They're like, no, a sponsor has to take you through them. So once I started to get some clarity, the obsession to drink and use was lifted from me when I got into rehab because it was like a safe space where I couldn't, and I didn't know anybody because I was here in Southern California. Um, that's when I started to take my recovery seriously. And I still work on myself because it's like an emotional thing now, you know? It's like an old programming thing. It's not like I don't fear the relapse of substances today. Today, what I try and like adjust are like my old programming, you know, my old fears, my old thoughts and patterns, and things that I want to address. Like one of the things I recently got into was like understanding that I am, you know, I seek validation. I seek validation. So, um, I when I had my son, I remember thinking, man, I need to get back to work. Like, I need to get back on my work grind. I have a lot of projects going on right now. And then I was reminded, because this is some work that I'm doing with my mentor. I was reminded that like I had this realization that like I seek people's validation. So I had to really like sit there in that moment when I was thinking when my son was like 3 days old that I need to get back to work. And my wife had, you know, just had a C-section. So she's like on the mend. Those crazy thoughts are just my old programming. And that it's okay for me to be here with my family. You know, it's great for me to be here with my family and my tribe and and that's something that I'm sure that I'll continue to battle, you know, that old programming. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna go drink or I'm gonna go use. It's like how can I be the most impactful person, the most helpful person that I can for others, you know, and that starts with the work on ourselves. Like the extent that we can help other people is the extent of healing that we've done for ourselves, which is why people in recovery are so impactful to the newcomer, you know, because we've walked that path and we've said, hey man, like these are the things that I've gone through. This is what I did and this is what it's like now. Um, and so I'm just kind of trying to transition that into not just people in recovery, but just anybody, anybody that I can help. I see the value in the 12 steps and how it helps everybody that comes in and works them. I haven't seen it not help somebody, you know. That's just in my experience. Maybe it hasn't at some point, but I haven't witnessed that. Um, and so I find people that have to go the path of addiction very lucky, if we don't die or don't end up in prison, very lucky to get to a point where we can work the steps. But now I want to just try and help not only people in recovery, but people that never have had to walk the addiction path, to find that connection with themselves, to work through things in a similar way that we have. And so that's kind of like my goal right now, is to kind of work to be a transformational leader, transformational speaker, um, and just help people on a larger scale. I feel like that's what I'm called for. So I'm walking that path right now.
Right. No, that's awesome, dude. I feel the same way too. Like with using, I thought at first, okay, if I put down drinking and using, I'm good. But then I realized that was like the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to it. And I think the good thing is I have to learn how to address it. But part of me is like, damn, I mean, I can't go back, but it's like, I remember back in the day, I would just get high and forget. But now I can't. I have to really, you know, do some inner work and see that there's a lot more to it than using. Me too. I'm just a very selfish person. I don't know if being an only child has anything to do with it, but it's a struggle sometimes, man. I gotta like think about other people and all this stuff when I'm so used to just doing me. So that's definitely something I still have to work on. Um, with yeah, man. Oh yeah, with the Four Locos thing, just in general. Like I remember one time, a friend of mine made a comment that maybe I'm doing too much drugs, and I got so defensive. I didn't tell it to their face, but in my head, I'm like, "What's this person's problem? They're so judgmental." Like they don't know me. Like I thought we were cool. It's my birthday. What the fuck have you done? Like, and it just I couldn't take that. But then looking in hindsight, okay, I can see where she's coming from. But I was just so delusional with that sense of just like being defensive and just thinking about myself. Yeah, I really couldn't admit that, like this is next level type of drug. This isn't just like smoking weed or drinking, you know. But when you said that, yeah, I felt like they could be somebody really close to me, but when they said some stuff like that, I would get defensive. And, so now that I'm clean, I kind of I'm being mindful of how I say things because I remember what it's like, but I can relate to that when things are going well and someone makes a comment that I don't like and I'm under the influence or, an addiction. I tend to take things a lot more serious than it should be. I still do, but now I have the wherewithal to realize like, okay, that's what they said. Yeah, you have an option. You can take it personally or not, or just not be so upset about it. I still see things maybe not in the best perspective, but it's something I'm working on.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's a lifelong process for us, and to kind of go to your point, like, no, bro, it's not just because you're your only child. We're also,
yeah,
I'm selfish. It's just something, it's something that like we get to work on and we get to be mindful of, and we get to like take contrary action for, and like it is a beautiful thing, man. Like, and then to your other point, like, when anyone would make a comment that was like something I was doing was wrong, or like, hey, maybe he needs help, or maybe he's drinking too much, bro. Don't let me hear that, because you are the worst person if you ever say anything against what I'm trying to do, like 100%, because we're sensitive, you know, because we are sensitive human beings, and we do take things the wrong way, and we do take things personal, and that's what contributes to our addiction too, because it like we're hurt, so we want to fix it. We took something the wrong way, and now we're hurt, and our feelings, and we were offended. We took offense, and now we want to fix it. Now we want to show them too. And so no, I feel like it's a common thread for me. I've seen that in my life tons of times. Anytime someone tried to say, oh, dude, especially if my ex-wife had tried to say something, if she would say, maybe you're drinking too much, I would just be like, well, what would you do if, someone cheated on you? Like I would completely flip it, manipulate it, play the victim, and, essentially be like verbally abusive, in those situations. And that's what allowed me to continue on that path. And same if like a family member. I mean, my family didn't really say too much. I don't think that they were really trying to push like that. But if anyone else did, I'm just like, fuck you. You don't know me.
Yeah, exactly. Same with me, man. It's just it's so different now that we see things from a different point of view. So talk to us about Good Morning Capital. What is that?
Oh yeah, man. No, that's awesome. So my Good Morning Capital is an IG live that we do every week. I do it with my friend Robert and Joey Price. And it's basically just all focused around personal development, daily routines. Like what is the person that's coming on our show? What are they doing in their life? Whether it be every day, what's an overall focus, but more like kind of what's their daily routine, and then what do they hope to accomplish, and how are they feeling? It's almost like taking the opposite of like what someone's addiction is like. It's almost like, what are you doing now? And like, what was it like? What are you doing now? How is that working for you? But on the personal development side, like, what is it like today for you? How does it affect you? What is your morning routine like? How are you getting into a good, like healthy mind space? Cause like for us, it all starts up here. Our thoughts become our actions, our thoughts become our emotions, and then our emotions play into our actions, and all of that plays into what our reality is, what our personality is. And so how do we tap into something every day that allows us to be accountable, to put efforts in the right direction? And so we just get everyone's feedback, kind of what they're doing, what they're focused on. We want to share it with, with our audience or people that tune in. And we just kind of want to see what everyone's doing, like to improve themselves and how we can be of service to our community. Joey Price works in the treatment space like I do, like James does, and Robert works in like the podcast space. And so we just want to see how we could be of service and be a value add to our community. Like we have a lot of different people. I pull people from my leadership group or my mentor coaching group. And so these are people that aren't in recovery, but are just working towards their personal development. And so they all have like amazing stories too. Excuse me. And the neat thing is, like the neat thread in being a human is everybody has gone through stuff. Everybody has experienced struggle. Everybody has experienced difficult times. Some people that aren't even in addiction have like some of the wildest stories. And I'm just like, damn, you are a freaking soldier, you know? And yeah, and it's just we're just trying to step out of our own comfort zones, which was like my first intention. Not be selfish, because I was always scared to like get on podcasts or talk in front of other people. And so just to not be selfish, get out of my comfort zone and just kind of see where it evolves. I mean, we don't have any like specific direction other than just to kind of be of service and be a platform for other people.
Awesome. No, that sounds pretty cool. I'm a fan of morning routines. I feel like for me, I can't be on social media too much right when I wake up, that kind of stuff, and just being grateful. But yeah, I'm a big fan of morning routines. I feel like for the most part, how my morning goes tends to dictate how my day goes. Sometimes I can turn it around, but yeah, definitely morning routines are
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
big for me.
Well, our IG live used to be called "Win the Day" because one of my mentors, one of my other mentors, his slogan, and I know he pulled it from someone else, which he told us, but it's like win the morning, win the day. And we went through like morning rituals, and he's like, kind of to your point, if we can have a good morning, if we can get on the right track, then we can crush our day. And so originally it was win the day, and then and we just switched it over to Good Morning Capital.
Gotcha. Also, too, you're the founder and CEO of Basecamp Utah. Can you talk to us more about that?
So Basecamp Academy is an adolescent mental health residential program in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm the founder of it. My brother-in-law, who's also my partner, is the founder of it, and it's for adolescent young men to come in. It's going to be obviously a clinically sound residential mental health program. It's for kids who struggle with substance to a certain degree, but also mood and anxiety stuff, maybe some behavioral stuff. We have a heavy clinical team there, as well as like a heavy mentorship program. And we'll be doing a lot of stuff with like physical fitness and things of that nature. So we haven't opened yet, but we are in the process of opening out in Salt Lake City, Utah, where we have a huge network of people that we work with. I was actually a counselor for juvenile justice services in Utah when I was living out there. My brother-in-law, also a counselor for juvenile justice services. And so we just love that population. We love working with young men. I've coached young men. I think it's just like such a neat space to work in, such a needed space. My brother-in-law, my partner, has the best athletic facilities in Utah, and they train kids from like 5 years old all the way up through college. And then even like some professional athletes will come back and train and stuff. But he's heavily involved with that. I mean, that is it's called Tip Top Athlete. And so we were just thinking, like, how can we be more impactful in the world? How can we help young men? And the neat thing about our program, which I can say is going to be very unique, is that we'll be involved with the day-to-day stuff, and our stories and the paths that we've both been on are so diverse and so unique. You know, I'm a collegiate athlete. He's a collegiate and professional athlete. The fact that we're going to be there, it's going to be like heavy personal development, heavy mentorship, obviously heavy clinical, but the model is going to be very unique, and it's going to. Our goal is to affect everybody that comes through our door. Our goal is to affect every single young man that enters our program, and hopefully change the lives of quite a few of them. But definitely affect everyone, and they will be affected. They're going to know it. What makes us different is just we will be on site, and we just care so much about this population and want to see them just be the best versions of themselves.
That's great, man. I think that's awesome because I feel like having that outlet, you know, it can help out a lot of young men, especially that age. I feel like that's when a lot of the stuff, you know, happens. And, you know, maybe if they get the help or mentorship, at that age, maybe they won't do as many things they might regret in the future. Yeah. So that's really cool to serve that population. Last question, man. I mean, you've been clean / sober for like 6 years. Did you think you'd get to where you are when you first started?
Hell no. I didn't think that at all. I remember going into rehab, and I just wanted to do, I want to say they had like a 60-day option and a 90-day option. Or I think it was 45, 60, or 90 days when I went to sign in. And I made the guy put like 30, like right in 30 days, because that's all I was committing to, you know? And I actually thought my life was okay. You know, I was renting a room. I was single. I was heavy in my addiction, and I thought things were okay. And I just gotten fired from a job, so I just felt like I needed 30 days and I could go back. I could have never even told myself what my life would be like today, which is the same. It's the same for you. You know, like the things people told me, Like just, give it a few years, give it 5 years, see where you're at in 5 years. That stuff, like they initially say like give it 30 days and they'll be like give it a year. If you don't like it, we will gladly refund your misery, and then it's like give it 5 years, and now it's like give it 10 years and see what happens. I mean, I don't have today, I don't have any desire to drink or use today where I'm at today. Tomorrow I might, who knows? I don't know. Maybe I will. But today I am, just absolutely no desire, but I couldn't have told myself where my life was going to be. The accomplishments I have now, the things I have now, Vaughn, are like everything I wanted, but I never knew how to get. Like I have it now, but not because I'm chasing it. And I don't know how to really explain it other than just like I was told to to work the steps, and I followed the example of people to the best of my ability that I really admired in recovery. And I do my best to like work a program, and I have grace for myself because I don't meet up to what my expectations would have been, previously, and kind of like my old fixed mindset. So I have grace for myself in those moments, and dude, my life is amazing today. And not because of all the things I have, but because of the relationships that I have, the connection I have, the relationship I have with my wife, the relationship I have with my son, the relationship I have with my parents. Dude, my parents, when I got sober, like started to visibly look younger because they weren't so stressed out about what I like my safety and my security. And I never understood that because in the middle of my addiction, I always thought I was doing it to myself. I was very much, this is just me. I'm just doing it to me. Now I realize how it affects everyone that cares about you. It affects everyone that works with you or interacts with you. And I'm able to be mindful of that stuff today. I love the Daniel who was in addiction, and I love that, he was able to make it through some of those dark times, and I love that I didn't die or end up in jail. And I have a lot of grace for that Daniel. That Daniel was just doing his best with what he had at the time. And I'm so grateful for finding recovery, man. Like everything that I felt was irreparable, insurmountable, unattainable is like the exact opposite now. All of the bridges I thought I burnt were unrepairable have found a way to mend themselves. And I have connection with people that I thought I never would. All the people I thought I could never forgive because I was so resentful, they've been able to forgive me. They've been able to forgive me. Um, and, yeah, dude, like the life today is just something I could have never told myself, but it's absolutely worth it. It's worth staying clean and sober for.
Awesome, man. That's great to hear. I'm really proud of you with what you've accomplished. From drinking Four Locos before work to this, man. I mean, it's night and day. It's cool to see that you decide to give back and help each other, help other people out and help yourself out, the community out. It's really inspiring. I only got 18 months or 19 months, but we'll see where it takes me down the road. I've noticed things started turning around for my life for the better around like 1 year. Still go through ups and downs, but the difference is I'm able to cope with life a little healthier. I'm not using or drinking. So that's a big win. And yeah, like you said, I'm having better relationships with people around me. It's so trippy. My friend said that, when you were like using, you were kind of manic. I'm like, really? I had no idea. It's like, yeah, 1 minute you were like really happy, but then you call me like the next day you're really sad. I'm like, huh, I never really realized that, but probably because I was higher coming down. I never realized how much my mood changes and how it can affect other people. So I'm glad you talked about that.
And what I can tell you too, Vaughn, is that the path that you're on right now, bro, this is the path, bro. What you're doing right now is adding value to the world. So instead of our old selves where we're liabilities, now we're valuable. Like what you're doing right now is the path, bro. You keep doing this a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, dude, you will freaking be completely amazed about where your life is and the doors that'll open. You're being of service. You're sharing your story. You're allowing other people to share their story. You're taking action, bro. Like, I'm so proud of you. This is amazing.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's a trip. I never thought I could live life like this. I always thought that, man, I don't want to get sober. I don't want to get clean. That's boring. You know, I told myself that, like, what do people do when they're not like getting high or drunk? And now it's like, wow, it's a trip. I'm living life. I never thought I would be able to. I can sit at home, sit at home on a Friday night and just watch movies and not get high, which sounds pretty like normal to somebody who doesn't use, but somebody who like in addiction or recovery, you know, like certain days, certain nights, Friday nights, fuck man, like I'm gonna get high right now kind of thing. So it's just nice to be able to just do that, you know, wake up and be at work and be dependable and be on time, all that stuff, and not have to make excuses. Just little things, man. Little things that I never thought I'd like get over, but it's really cool to, you know, to be clean now. So yeah, with that said, man, I think that wraps it up, dude. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Vaughn. Appreciate you, brother.
No problem, man. Do you have like where can we find you on like the Good Morning Capital and all that stuff?
Yeah. So you can follow me at D underscore Nuño, Nuno, D underscore Nuno on IG. You can follow My Good Morning Capital, which is Joey Price runs that IG account. You can follow Basecamp Academy Utah, which is Basecamp Academy is our program that we're opening in Utah. And it's the handles at Basecamp Academy Utah.
All right, cool. Thanks, man. You have a good rest of your day. I'm going to pause this real quick, stop it.